My mother, Nora, was always my rock, the one person who stood by me through everything. So, for her 50th birthday, I planned the perfect celebration, spending thousands from my savings. Then came that text from Dad: "Skip Mom's birthday. No one wants you here anyway. You're a total failure." His words burned, but my fingers remained steady as I typed. So cash matters more than your kid. I just canceled everything, even the restaurant deposit you can not get back. If you are watching this, drop a comment telling me where you are from, and hit that subscribe button to see how this family drama unfolds. Growing up in our suburban Michigan home, there was always an unspoken hierarchy in our family. My younger sister Amanda, now 27, was the golden child who could do no wrong while I was constantly trying to prove my worth. Amanda, with her perfect grades and cheerleading trophies, always received the loudest applause from Dad. Me, I was the scapegoat, blamed for everything from the overflowing toilet to the dent in the car nobody would admit to causing. I am a 30-year-old financial analyst now, but back then I was just the kid who could never measure up. My mother, Nora, a kindergarten teacher with the patience of a saint, always tried to bridge the gap. She would slip into my room after particularly harsh criticisms from Dad, offering quiet reassurance that things would get better. "He just has trouble showing his feelings," she would say, smoothing my hair back from my forehead. But we both knew it was more than that. Dad worked as a regional manager for a chain of hardware stores. He had a controlling personality that dominated our household. When Amanda brought home an A-, he would proudly display it on the refrigerator. When I brought home straight, as he would ask why I was not participating in more extracurricular activities, the pattern was impossible to miss. I remember my high school graduation clearly. While Dad rented a professional photographer for Amanda's graduation the following year for mine, he simply handed my uncle a disposable camera. At the ceremony, he cheered loudly for the valedictorian Samantha Peters, whom he had met exactly once at a parent-teacher conference. When my name was called, I heard only my mother's enthusiastic applause from the stands. Despite the lack of support, I excelled academically. I won a partial scholarship to State University, worked 2 part-time jobs, and graduated with honors in finance. Not that Dad noticed. When I landed my first job at a prestigious financial firm in Chicago, his only comment was, "Let us hope you can keep it." Amanda, meanwhile, followed a more conventional path with Dad's full emotional and financial backing. She attended the local community college, got her teaching certificate, and found a job at a school 20 minutes from our parents' house. She still lived at home until last year, saving money for a down payment on a condo, while Dad covered all her living expenses. Today, I manage investment portfolios worth millions of dollars. I have a comfortable apartment downtown, a solid $401k, and enough disposable income to indulge in occasional luxuries like international travel. On paper, I am the definition of success. Yet in family gatherings, Dad still introduces Amanda first. "This is my daughter, Amanda. She shapes young minds. And this is my son. He does something with money." The irony is that despite Dad's dismissal of my career, I have been the one financially supporting the family during rough patches. When Dad needed a new transmission for his car 3 years ago, I wrote the check without hesitation. When the roof started leaking last winter, I covered the insurance deductible. Not because I was looking for gratitude, but because that is what family does. But money could not buy Dad's approval. As my financial independence grew, so did his hostility. He would make passive-aggressive remarks about people who think they are better than everyone else because they wear fancy suits. He would dismiss my advice on investments with a wave of his hand, then complain about his dwindling retirement fund. Our most significant argument happened last Thanksgiving. Dad was complaining about property taxes while carving the turkey. I suggested a legal strategy that could potentially save him thousands. He slammed the carving knife down so hard that gravy splashed onto my mother's tablecloth. "You think you know everything now. Just because you move away and get some fancy job does not mean you understand the real world. Your sister is doing meaningful work while you just push papers around." The table fell silent. I looked at Mom, whose eyes pleaded for peace. I looked at Amanda, who stared at her plate with a small, satisfied smile. I excused myself, went for a long walk, and returned only after dessert had been served. I have tried reconciling with Dad numerous times. I sent him articles about finance that I thought might interest him. I invited him to visit me in Chicago, offering to pay for everything. I even tried engaging with him about his interests, watching football games I did not care about, and asking about his fishing trips. Nothing worked. Each attempt was met with dismissal or outright rejection. The last time I tried to have a heart-to-heart talk with him, he interrupted me mid-sentence. Save your corporate jargon for your clients. I am not buying whatever you are selling. Despite all this, when Mom's 50th birthday approached, I saw an opportunity. Mom had always been my ally, my supporter, my confidant. She deserved something special, something that showed her how much she meant to me. I began planning 3 months in advance. I reserved the private room at Bellini's, her favorite Italian restaurant in town. I hired a jazz quartet because she loves live music. I ordered custom decorations in her favorite colors, coral and cream. I arranged for a professional photographer to capture the evening, and I found the perfect gift, a delicate sapphire necklace that matched her eyes, accompanied by a spa weekend getaway package. The total came to just over $5,000, a significant sum, but one I was happy to spend. Mom's excitement was palpable during our weekly phone calls. I cannot believe you are doing all this for me, she would say. Just having you here would be enough. Amanda contributed by creating a photo collage and helping with the guest list. Dad's involvement was limited to occasional grunts of approval when Mom showed him the invitation I had designed. Yet somehow, when relatives called to confirm their attendance, Dad spoke as if he were the mastermind behind it all. As the big day approached, I could not wait to see the joy on Mom's face when she walked into that room filled with everyone she loved, with all the details perfectly arranged to celebrate her 50 years. The week before Mom's birthday began normally enough. I took Thursday and Friday off work to fly home early and handle the final arrangements. The weather forecast looked perfect for Saturday's celebration. The vendors had all confirmed. The guest list was finalized at 30 people, including some of Mom's childhood friends who were driving in from out of state. On Tuesday, I received a strange text from Amanda. Just checking that you are still coming this weekend. When I confirmed that of course I was coming, she responded with a cryptic. Okay, just making sure. I thought it was odd, but dismissed it, as Amanda being Amanda. Wednesday evening, I called home to speak with Mom about some last-minute details. Dad answered and said she was out shopping with Amanda. As we were about to hang up, I heard him say to someone in the background, "No, I did not tell him." My ears perked up, but when I asked who he was talking to, Dad claimed it was just the television. Thursday morning, I received a call from my aunt, Margaret, Mom's sister. Your dad told us you cannot make it to the party anymore. We are all so disappointed. Is everything all right with work? My stomach dropped. What? No, that is completely wrong. I am flying in this afternoon. Aunt Margaret paused. That is strange. Your father specifically told everyone you had a work emergency and would not be there. After hanging up, I immediately tried calling Mom. No answer. I tried Dad. Straight to voicemail. I finally reached Amanda, who sounded oddly defensive. Oh, Dad must have misunderstood something, she said too quickly. I am sure it is just a mix-up. But as I packed my suitcase, more pieces fell into place. Dad had been acting as the point of contact for the party, intercepting calls and messages meant for me. The restaurant had called my phone earlier that week about a payment confirmation mentioning that someone had tried to modify the reservation. At the time, I assumed it was just a standard verification. I landed at Metro Airport that afternoon with a sense of foreboding. Mom's usual enthusiastic greeting was replaced with a subdued hello and a quick hug. When I asked about the party preparations, she seemed confused. I thought you were too busy now, she said quietly. Dad said you had to cancel most of the arrangements because of work. Before I could respond, Dad walked in, his face darkening when he saw me. You made it after all, he said, as if my presence was an inconvenience rather than the plan all along. That night, I overheard Dad and Amanda whispering in the kitchen. I could not make out the exact words, but the tone was urgent and conspiratorial. When they noticed me approaching, they abruptly changed the subject to the weather. Something was very wrong. The next morning, while sitting in a coffee shop finalizing details with the restaurant manager, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. The words that appeared on my screen hit me like a physical blow. "Skip Mom's birthday. No one wants you here anyway. You are a total failure." I stared at my phone, the coffee cooling in front of me, my hands suddenly clammy and cold. The restaurant manager was still talking, but her words faded to background noise. I excused myself and stepped outside, gulping the crisp morning air. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to set my phone down on a bench to read the message again. It was not a mistake. The contempt in those words was unmistakable, crushing in its finality. I tried calling Mom 3 times in succession. Each call went to voicemail. I left messages, my voice carefully controlled. "Mom, I need to talk to you. It is important. Please call me back." Next, I called Amanda. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice wary. "Did you know about this?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "About what?" she replied, but the feigned innocence did not mask her discomfort. "Dad just texted me to skip Mom's birthday party. The one I planned. The one I paid for." A pause. "He is just stressed about some money stuff. You know how he gets." "That does not answer my question, Amanda. Did you know he was going to do this?" Another pause, longer this time. "Look, Dad. Feels like you are always showing off with your money, making him look bad. Maybe this one time you could just step back and let him handle things his way." I hung up, disgust rising in my throat. A quick call to my Aunt Margaret confirmed my suspicions. Dad had been telling the entire family that I did not want to attend, that I was too busy with my important job to make time for family. Worse, he had been taking credit for all the arrangements I had made and paid for. But why? Why go to such lengths to exclude me from an event I had created? The answer came from an unexpected source. My cousin Thomas, who worked at the same hardware chain as Dad, called me later that day. "I do not know what is going on with your dad and the birthday party," he said, "but I thought you should know that he is in some financial trouble. There were layoffs last month and his hours got cut back significantly. He is putting on a brave face, but people are talking." The pieces clicked into place. Dad's recent avoidance of financial discussions, his insistence on handling all communication about the party, his growing resentment of my career success. Dad was broke, yet too proud to admit it. Instead of accepting my help or being honest with Mom, he had decided to push me out of the picture entirely and take credit for my contributions. And Amanda, always eager for Dad's approval, had gone along with it. But the most painful revelation came when I finally connected with Mom that evening. She believed I had voluntarily backed out of the party planning. Dad had convinced her that my work was more important to me than family, reinforcing the narrative that I had abandoned them for my career. I was disappointed, she admitted, her voice small. "But I understand that your life is different now." The betrayal was complete. My own family had conspired against me, twisting my act of love into a weapon to use against me. I sat alone in my old bedroom, surrounded by high school trophies and faded posters, feeling as if the walls were closing in. The text message from Dad glowed accusingly from my phone screen. Hot tears of anger and hurt spilled down my cheeks, though I tried to force them back. For 30 minutes, I allowed myself to fall apart completely. I punched my pillow until my arms ached. I cried until my throat was raw. I considered driving straight back to the airport and washing my hands of my family for good. Then slowly clarity began to emerge through the emotional storm. This was just the latest episode in a lifelong pattern. Dad would push me away, Mom would make excuses for him, Amanda would take his side, and I would eventually cave in and apologize for crimes I had not committed. Then the cycle would begin again. Nothing would change unless I changed it. As long as I continued to play the designated role of family scapegoat, they would continue casting me in that part. As long as I allowed Dad to manipulate situations without consequences, he would keep doing it. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. I was 30 years old, financially independent, and emotionally stronger than I had given myself credit for. I did not need to remain trapped in this dynamic. I washed my face with cold water, took several deep breaths, and began to think strategically. The party was less than 24 hours away. Every service had been paid for with my credit card. Everything was in my name. I had options. For a moment, I considered letting the party proceed as planned, showing up anyway and exposing Dad's manipulation in front of everyone. But that would only hurt Mom on what was supposed to be her special day. She did not deserve to have her birthday ruined by family drama, regardless of how justified my anger might be. No, I needed a response that would force accountability without collateral damage, something that would break the pattern without breaking my mother's heart. With newfound calm, I opened my laptop and began methodically contacting each vendor I had hired. First, I called Bellini's restaurant. "I need to cancel the reservation for tomorrow night," I explained to the manager, Maria, the Nora Thompson party. "But everything is set up. The deposit is non-refundable at this point." "I understand. I will not be asking for a refund." I paused. "Actually, could you transfer the reservation to another name, Jackson Wilson?" That was my cousin Thomas's name. He would make sure Mom had somewhere nice to eat at least. "We can do that. But all the special arrangements, the quartet, the custom menu, cancel those, please. Just keep the basic dinner reservation for 30 people. Next was the photographer David. This one hurt more as I would lose my $1,000 deposit. "Family emergency," I explained briefly. "I understand about the cancellation policy. The florist and decorator were more flexible, offering partial refunds that I declined. Keep the money as a booking fee," I told them both. I apologize for the last-minute change. The jazz quartet was understanding but firm about their cancellation policy. Another non-refundable deposit gone. The custom cake from Mom's favorite bakery canceled. The surprise video montage from family and friends that I had spent weeks compiling shelved. The only thing I did not cancel was Mom's gift. I redirected the delivery of the sapphire necklace and spa package to my apartment in Chicago. I would send it to her later when we could speak privately about what had happened. With each cancellation, a weight lifted from my shoulders. I was not being vindictive. I was simply removing myself from an unhealthy situation. Dad wanted to take credit. Let him figure out how to handle things now. Finally, I composed a calm, factual response to Dad's text. "I have canceled everything I paid for. The restaurant reservation is now under Thomas's name. There will be no music, no photographer, no special decorations, and no cake. You can explain to Mom and the guests why. Do not contact me again until you are ready to apologize. I will be returning to Chicago tonight." I took screenshots of all the cancellation confirmations and Dad's original text. Then I packed my bag, left a brief note for Mom, explaining that I had been called back to work. The lie tasted bitter, but a confrontation would only make her birthday worse, and booked a late flight back to Chicago. Within minutes of sending my text, my phone exploded with notifications. Dad called 7 times in succession. When I did not pick up, he switched to texting, "What have you done?" followed by "You cannot do this," and finally, "Call me immediately." Amanda's messages were equally frantic, but more accusatory. "How could you do this to Mom? You are being so selfish. Dad was just having a bad day." The most difficult call to ignore was from Mom. When her name flashed on my screen, my finger hovered over the accept button. But I knew that if I spoke to her now, Dad would manipulate the conversation. Instead, I texted her, "I love you, Mom. Ask Dad to show you the text he sent me this morning. Call me tomorrow when you are alone." As I sat in the airport waiting for my flight, more messages poured in. Dad's tone changed from angry to panic to pleading. Amanda switched from accusations to bargaining. Relatives began texting, confused about conflicting information they were receiving. Through it all, I maintained my silence. For the first time in my life, I was not rushing to smooth things over to be the bigger person to keep the peace at the expense of my own dignity. It was terrifying and empowering all at once. As my flight took off, I switched my phone to airplane mode, symbolically disconnecting from the chaos below. Tomorrow would bring consequences, confrontations, and difficult conversations. But tonight, flying above the clouds, I felt something unexpected peace. The morning of Mom's birthday, I woke in my Chicago apartment to 43 missed calls and over 60 unread text messages. I scrolled through them chronologically, watching the story unfold from afar. Dad's messages began with fury, then shifted to desperate problem-solving as he realized the extent of the cancellations. Amanda's followed a similar pattern, though, with more blame directed at me. Various relatives expressed confusion then, concern then outright alarm as the truth began to emerge. Mom's messages broke my heart. Please call me back. I do not understand what is happening. Then later, Dad is very upset. The restaurant says there is no music or cake arranged. What is going on? And finally, Thomas showed me Dad's text to you. We need to talk. According to Thomas's updates, Dad had spent the morning frantically calling restaurants to find an alternative venue, only to discover that Saturday night reservations were impossible to secure on such short notice. He had driven to 3 different bakeries looking for a ready-made cake. He had even tried to convince a college student who worked at the hardware store to bring his guitar for impromptu entertainment. The birthday dinner did proceed at Bellini's under Thomas's name, but it was a shadow of what I had planned. The private room had been given to another party, so they were seated in the main dining area. There were no decorations, no music, no photographer to capture the memories. But the most significant development came when Mom demanded to see Dad's text to me in front of everyone at the table. Thomas described the scene, Dad reluctantly showing her his phone. Mom's face crumpling as she read the words, followed by her standing up and walking out of the restaurant with her sister. The family dinner had imploded spectacularly. Various relatives took sides. Amanda tried to defend Dad, but her arguments fell apart when confronted with the evidence of his text. Dad attempted to dismiss it as just a moment of frustration, but no one was buying it. Mom called me that evening from her sister's house, where she had gone after leaving the restaurant. Her voice was thick with tears. I had no idea, she said simply. All these years I thought I was protecting you by smoothing things over. But I was just enabling him, was not I? We talked for over 2 hours. Really talked, perhaps for the first time in our adult relationship. I explained how it felt to be the family scapegoat, to have my accomplishments dismissed, to be pushed away and pulled back in an endless cycle. She shared her fear of confrontation, her misguided belief that keeping peace was the same as creating harmony. I am so sorry, she said repeatedly. I should have stood up for you. I should have seen what was happening. The next morning, I took a flight back home, not to make peace, but to have an honest conversation with my family. Mom met me at the airport, hugging me tightly. Dad and Amanda are at the house, she said. They know we need to talk as a family. The conversation that followed was painful, raw, and long overdue. Dad initially tried to justify his actions, claiming he had been trying to protect Mom from disappointment when he thought I might not make the party perfect enough. That is not true, and you know it, I said calmly, showing him the screenshots of all my careful planning and payments. You wanted to take credit for something you had no part in. You wanted to push me out because you cannot handle that I am successful. Dad's face flushed red, but before he could respond, Mom cut in. He is right, Robert. I have seen the evidence. You deliberately excluded our son and lied to me about it. Amanda tried to interject with excuses about Dad's financial stress and damaged pride, but I held up my hand. That explains his behavior but does not excuse it. Adults talk about their problems. They do not manipulate and lie and hurt the people who love them. For once, no one had a ready comeback. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Dad finally spoke, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. I was ashamed, he admitted. The company is downsizing. My position is being eliminated next month. I did not want everyone to know that while you were throwing this expensive party. So instead of talking to me, you decided to push me away and take credit for my gift to Mom. He had no good answer for that. The conversation continued for hours, with periodic breaks for tempers to cool and thoughts to gather. By the end, we had not solved everything, but we had dragged the family dynamics into the light where they could no longer thrive in shadow. Mom insisted that Dad attend counseling with her as a condition of moving forward. Amanda reluctantly acknowledged her role in enabling Dad's behavior. And I made it clear that while I was open to healing our relationship, I would no longer accept being the family scapegoat. A week later, Mom came to visit me in Chicago alone, a first in our relationship. Over dinner at my favorite restaurant, she presented me with a small gift, a framed photo of us from my high school graduation. Her arm around my shoulder, both of us smiling. "I want to start fresh," she said. "I want to get to know my son as he really is, not as your father wants to see you." In the months that followed, our family began the slow, difficult work of rebuilding. Dad and Mom started therapy both as a couple and individually. Dad's initial reluctance gave way to genuine, if awkward, efforts to connect with me without criticism or comparison. When he found a new job with lower pay but better stability, he actually called to ask for my financial advice, a small miracle in itself. Amanda and I established a more honest relationship. Without Dad's favoritism to hide behind, she had to confront her own role in our family dynamic. Our conversations became less competitive and more collaborative, especially when it came to supporting our parents through their changes. As for me, I learned that standing up for myself did not have to mean cutting off my family. It meant establishing boundaries, requiring respect, and being honest about hurts instead of burying them. Sometimes that meant uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes it meant stepping back temporarily. But it never again meant accepting mistreatment as the price of belonging. 6 months later, we celebrated Mom's birthday again, a proper do-over with the jazz quartet, custom cake, and professional photos I had originally planned. Dad stood up during the party and publicly thanked me for organizing everything, acknowledging his behavior at the previous attempt. It was clearly difficult for him, but it was a genuine step toward healing. What I learned through all of this is that family patterns do not break themselves. Someone has to be brave enough to disrupt the cycle, even when it feels like betrayal. Sometimes love looks like canceling a party. Sometimes growth comes disguised as conflict. And sometimes the best gift you can give your family is refusing to play your assigned role in a dysfunctional dynamic. If you have ever been the family scapegoat or found yourself cast in a role you never asked for, know that you have the power to rewrite the script. It will not be easy, and not everyone will understand or support your boundaries. But the freedom and authenticity waiting on the other side are worth every difficult moment. Have you ever had to stand up to family manipulation? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and finding your voice. And if you know someone struggling with family dynamics, share this with them. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Thank you for listening to my story.